Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters. I'm your host, Mitch. Glad to have you here. Here at the Commander's Quarters, we're all about Commander on a budget. Today we have an episode of Commander's 2 Cents. On episodes like these, I give you my own personal take on topics about the format in general and current news. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. And while you're at it, subscribe and review our podcast as well. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Quarters studio. Welcome to the show. So today's episode is going to be a fun one. I'm going to be talking about how to beat Cyclonic Rift. Now, Cyclonic Rift has been considered by many for quite a long time to be kind of the boogeyman of the Commander format. You know, it's an extremely overpowered instant speed board wipe that takes out, instant speed one-sided board wipe that takes out everyone's things except for your own. So yeah, there's not too many other cards that just get audible groans the second that they're cast. Oh, here we go again, you know, Cyclonic Rift, of course. So for those of you that don't know, Cyclonic Rift is an instant for 1 and a blue, though no one ever really cast it for that. It says return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand, and it's got overload for a 6 and a blue. So basically, when you cast it for its overload cost, if you do, you change its text by replacing all instances of target with each. So instead of just being one thing you bounce all non-land permanents you don't control. So yeah, one-sided instant speed board wipe, really powerful in Commander. Now, obviously, the first way that you can beat Cyclonic Rift is a pretty straightforward one. You could simply counter it. I mean, you could use a counter spell, something as simple as counter spell, just instant for blue, counter target spell. You know, at that point, you're kind of winning because, you know, your things aren't getting bounced. And also, you know, that opponent paid 7 mana to cast the Rift Overloaded, and you paid 2 mana to counter it. So yeah, you're losing 1 card, your opponents really aren't, but obviously stopping it is much better than not stopping it. So that is the first very straightforward way. There's also some other ways, though, that can really benefit you or kind of work around it. So let's get into some more the more interesting ones. But before we do that, just kind of a fun one. Time Stop is an instant for 4 blue. It's an instant that just says, end the turn. So remove all spells and abilities on the stack from the game, including this card. The player whose turn it is discards down to their maximum hand size. Damage wears off in this turn and until the end turn effects end. So essentially, Cyclonic Rift's on the stack, and you're just like, you know, let's just not have that happen. It's kind of like a counter spell in that instance, but it's kind of funny just to say, okay, this player's got, you know, this is my big play. Here we go. This is going to happen. And then you're like, oh, nope, turn's over. Yeah, sorry. Cyclonic Rift's gone, you know, no more fun for you. A very expensive way to get around this. So again, I generally try to bring up budget ones, but this one is too good to not bring up. Teferi's Protection, instant for a 2 and a white, says until your next turn, your life total can't change, and you've got protection from everything. All permanents you control phase out. Exile Teferi's Protection. So this one is kind of it's better than just strictly countering it because your other opponents, not the player who cast it, but your other opponents are still going to get wiped by the Rift. And you're just going to have all your things phase out, and you're going to be fine. You'll come back when you come back, and all your things will still be there. So yeah, this is kind of, it turns that, you know, one-sided board wipe effect into a, hey, me and you are kind of in this together. You know, we're in this together. Let's, you know, wipe everyone else's boards except for ours, kind of. So yeah, this is an expensive way. Hopefully Teferi's Protection is reprinted at some point, but it's a way to get around it. A somewhat similar one, but just for creatures, is going to be Eerie Interlude. It's an instant for 2 and a white. It says exile any number of target creatures you control. Return those cards to the battlefield under their owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So this one will basically save all your creatures. You know, you basically, you know, say, okay, you cast your Cyclonic Rift. In response, I will, you know, tell my creatures to, you know, step out of here for a while. You know, you'll come back when it's safe. Everything else gets bounced. Your creatures come back in. Obviously, if you've got planeswalkers, artifacts, enchantments, those get bounced back to your hand still. But at least your army's still there. And yeah, it's a good way to, I mean, this is a fantastic board wipe protection spell, especially against a Rift, because again, you are going to be kind of coming out ahead of not necessarily the player that cast it, because again, your other things are going to get bounced, but the other players that get their things bounced, you're going to be ahead of them. So a really funny one that I actually have pulled off a few times, which is really kind of turning it on its head a little bit, is going to be Reins of Power. Reins of Power is an instant for 2 blue. It says untap all creatures you control and all creatures target opponent controls. You and that opponent each gain control of all creatures the other controls until end of turn. Those creatures gain haste until end of turn. This is an extremely flexible card. It's one that I've used before to win games. You know, you basically just switch your army, which might not be existent, with someone else's huge army, and you can swing out and win. But then in a Cyclonic Rift situation, this becomes, okay, you cast Cyclonic Rift, all right? You've got your army, I've got mine. Mine's supposed to be bounced, but you know what? Let's swap armies really quick. Okay, so now I've got your army. It's getting bounced back to your hand. My army is safe under your protection for right now, and then I'll get them back next turn, or at the end of the turn, and they'll be fine. So basically, it says, you know what, that Cyclonic Rift you just cast, you're going to be using that kind of on yourself. You know, you won't bounce your enchantments or artifacts, or planeswalkers, but basically you are going to be bouncing your own creatures, which they're definitely not going to be expecting. So yeah, Reins of Power is kind of a, you know, pull the rug out from under someone's feet kind of card. It's a lot of fun, very flexible, works in a lot of different situations. I highly recommend that card. Another way to kind of turn it on its head a little bit is going to be any kind of a copy instant or sorcery effect. Reverberate is an instant for red. It says copy target instant or sorcery spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. Obviously, there are plenty of different versions of this, I believe in blue and red mostly. Basically, you just say, okay, you've got your Cyclonic Rift, now I've got mine, okay? So basically, it's not, again, not really going to affect the other two opponents on the board because obviously things are still being bounced regardless of whose Rift hits them. But now you're saying, okay, we're all in this together. Your things are going to get bounced as well. You cast your Cyclonic Rift, I copy it, and yes, I triple check to make sure that this is actually how it works. You are copying the overloaded card. It is overloaded, so that still works, okay? Again, I'm not a judge, but I believe 99.999% true that's true. So yeah, so essentially you're copying the overloaded Rift, and that opponent who cast it is kind of getting a taste of their own medicine, and their things are getting bounced too. Now, a better version of this is basically my category. I call it taking over. So instead of just copying it, you're like, okay, no, that Rift that you just cast, that's actually mine now. That this is going to work out for me. So Narset's Reversal is the kind of first one I want to bring up with this. It's an instant for blue. It's a fantastic spell. It says copy target instant or sorcery spell, then return it to its owner's hand. You may choose new targets for the copy. So this basically says, okay, you cast your Cyclonic Rift overloaded. Now that's my Cyclonic Rift overloaded. Yours goes back to your hand, so go ahead and cast it later, but not right now because mine's coming through. So basically, you're turning it on its head. You say, okay, all my opponents now are bouncing the things back to their hand. Basically, like you just cast the Rift, but you cast it for 2 mana. Yes, that player that got the Rift back can cast it again. Generally, they're not going to be able to cast it in the same turn because, that's, 14 mana at instant speed. They're probably not going to have access to that mana. They probably just were depending on casting it once. But basically, yeah, this is a very flexible spell. It works out in a lot of scenarios. It's great at stealing extra turn spells. But this is great at, saying, okay, your Cyclonic Rift, now it's mine. I'm just basically, turning it all on its head. I'm bouncing everyone else's things. And yeah, it's a huge value card. One that doesn't even give them the Rift back is going to be Sudden Substitution. It's an instant for 2 blue, and it's got split second, so as long as this spell is on the stack, players can't cast spells or activate abilities that aren't mana abilities. It says exchange control of target non-creature spell and target creature, then the spell's controller may choose new targets for it. So this one has split second, which is huge because even if they've got a counter spell ready, that doesn't work. You just basically say, okay, yeah, you're not going to be able to stop this. So Sudden Substitution is a very flexible card, but in this scenario, you'd be saying, okay, I've got, my 1/1 token or whatever. You need to have a creature on the board to make this work. But basically, you say, okay, I've got this, creature on the board. I've got this servo, whatever it is. I will give you my servo, and now I get the Rift. So basically, yeah, you're controlling the Rift. Everyone else's things are going to bounce. That servo you just gave them is going to, I believe, bounce anyways. So yeah, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, you're saying, okay, that Rift that you just cast, that you spent all that mana to cast, that's mine now, and it's almost impossible to stop Sudden Substitution. Split second. There's a few things that could do it, but very, very tough. Next up, there's Aether Snatch, which is kind of a similar version, but a little more expensive, and you don't have to give anything up for it. It's an instant for 4 blue. It says gain control target spell. You may choose new targets for it. Again, this is just gaining control of the spell is the important part of there. 6 mana is a lot, but technically you're saving on mana because you are stealing someone's Rift, and they paid 7 for that. So yeah, obviously it's well worth it. Gaining control of a Rift and bouncing everyone else's things. It's kind of just fun, kind of turning it on the head and just saying, hey, you know what? You were trying to, pull one on all of us, and you know what? I instead pulled one on you. Well, and the other players too. And the final one I'm going to go over today is going to be Commandeer. Instant for 5 blue. It says you may remove 2 blue cards in your hand from the game rather than pay Commandeer's mana cost. Gain control of a target non-creature spell. You may choose new targets for it. So essentially the exact same thing as Aether Snatch. It could cost 1 more. The only difference is that essentially that this one doesn't allow you to gain control of creature spells. Again, it says, I believe, non-creature spells. Yes. But basically, this one you can cast for free. You need 2 other blue spells in your hand, but again, for a blue deck, drawing cards is going to be no big deal. So essentially saying, okay, you're tapped out. Your opponent thinks that they've got, okay, they're going to be able to finish off the game now, right? They're going to cast their Cyclonic Rift. You're tapped out. There's no way you can stop them. And then next turn they're going to win. And you go, no, I'll exile 2 blue cards to my hand. I'll cast Commandeer for free. That Cyclonic Rift is mine, and let's bounce all your things back to your hand. It's a very kind of, unexpected play. It's a fantastic card. Again, there's definitely other ways that you can deal with Rift. These are just a few of them. It is an incredible, don't get me wrong, this is an incredible, powerful spell. It's hard to stop, if it's protected well. And it can really change the outcome of a game, but it can change the outcome of the game in your favor if you're kind of ready for it. And again, you don't want to necessarily build your deck completely around just stopping a Rift. I mean, that'd be a funny kind of meme deck to do if, your play group is all about playing Cyclonic Rift. But basically, having some flexible cards that can really work. Like, again, I mentioned Reins of Power. I love that card. It can work in a lot of scenarios, and it can help you against Rift. So it's just kind of good to know that that's kind of an option for it, so that when someone casts that Cyclonic Rift, you're not panicking and thinking, oh no, what do I do? It's a good thing to have in the back of your mind that, if something like this happens, I've got a response to it. So yeah, those are my picks. So yeah, in the comments below, let me know what you think about these picks for ways to beat Cyclonic Rift, and please let me know in the comments below some other ways that come to mind for you and how you would go about beating a Cyclonic Rift or turning it on its head. So yeah, that's all I've got for today. So as always, thanks again and have a good one. And make sure you're following us on social media for more updates and sneak peeks on future episodes. Again, a huge thank you to my patrons who help make this show possible. I truly couldn't do any of this without your support. If you want to support this channel directly, consider becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, including being able to vote on future Commanders for deck techs. There are even tiers where you get your own personalized deck tech dedicated to you. You can check out all the Patreon tiers and rewards at patreon.com/commandersquarters. If you haven't already, make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel. Here at the Commander's Quarters, we're all about budget Commander. So while you're at it, go ahead and check out some of our other types of episodes. And with that, I'm out of here. Thanks again and have a good one.